The speaker. As Marta said, I'm a journalist. I specialize in conflict areas, a war reporter. I have been covering international information in Iraq, Afghanistan, Somalia, and Syria. And that July the 13th, 2015, it was my 12th trip to Syria. So I was not on vacation there, and it was not the first time that I had been there. So that July the 13th, I had been working in the old town of Aleppo. It was taken by Syrian rebels, and of the last Christians in that place, we have some elderly people living in an elderly home. They were 5 left. The first time that I met them was 20, and my purpose was to explain to the world the situation of these 5 Christians there.
At the exit of the building where the Christians were located, there was a van with 6 armed men that stopped the car that I was traveling in with my colleagues. They came out of the car. They were wearing the jihadist type of attire, as you saw in the previous video. They pointed at us with the Kalashnikov and they started yelling at us. They had just kidnapped us. And the question that we were asking ourselves was, who is having us? If it's Al-Qaeda, perhaps we'll be released. If it's the Islamic State, then we're dead. That's the first question we asked ourselves. Who are they? They put us all in a van. They took us out of the city of Aleppo, and they started questioning us. Who we were, what we were doing, what countries we came from. They took our cameras away, our passports too, and they locked us up in another cell. At that moment, when you come to realize what has just happened, you're aware of the fact that you are kidnapped because your translator, your fixer, has sold you to the highest bidder. Our translator, our interpreter, betrayed us. Should we blame him or not? Well, after 2 years in freedom, I wouldn't blame Osama, because he's living amidst the worst war in the 21st century. Even though I'm 36-year-old, I've seen many wars, and I haven't seen any like serious war. And for the well-being of humanity, I hope there's never a war like this again. I know people are coming from Nigeria, people coming from Iraq here present in the room, but I've never seen a war like that of Syria. And for the well-being of yourselves and them too, I hope there's never a war like this again. But we were with another 3 journalists, and we were taken to a second home, to a second house, a normal house in the outskirts of a city that we cannot identify. It's our intuition that it's Idlib, because it's the bastion of Al-Qaeda. They call it Urrab. It's the brand, the mark of Al-Qaeda in Syria. The first few days were quite confusing because you come to realize that the people who have kidnapped you are not professionals. Actually, one of my colleagues used to say that these people had never seen a kidnapping, even on TV, because of their attitude. They fell asleep. They left the door open so that we could go from one place to another. And it was our intuition that we were in the hands of a very small group. That is, you're once again afraid of that small group negotiating with a larger group. We go back to what we said in the beginning. If they negotiated with Al-Qaeda, we held a chance. If they negotiated with the Islamic State, you can forget about it. Your head will be on one side and your body will be on another. And those were the options. We were aware of that. In the first 3 months, we were together, the 3 of us. In total, it was 95 days. 95 days by which we rotated from one group to another. We were sold to the highest bidder. In some groups, they treated us a bit better, and some groups a bit worse. And when we went on to the 3rd group, we realized that the people holding us were normal Syrian people, people who were in a specific circumstance because they were living in the worst war of the 21st century. They had lost everything they had. So what can you do? You can kidnap foreigners to get money. The people who held us hostage in that house were people like you and like me. The only difference is that they believe in a God that is different to ours. They weren't bad people, I can assure you that. None of them. They never laid their hands on us. They never threatened us. They never said anything bad to us. That's shocking, isn't it? It's not what you normally see on TV. It's not what you're used to. Actually, one of them, for quite a while, actually, I drew a chessboard on a piece of paper, and with the wrappings of cheeses, I started creating pieces for the chess game. One of them was really it called the attention of one of them, and because he realized that you couldn't play chess with that, he bought me a chessboard, and he asked me, "Is this haram?" Because actually the Muslim cannot play this type of games because luck is in the hands of God. And when I told him that chess was not played with luck, but through intellect, through wisdom, he said, "Can you teach me?" I taught him, and he got tired of me winning quite quickly. You may think, okay, I imagine he never played with you again. You're wrong. That guy, he downloaded an app on his smartphone. He won the app on his smartphone, and then he started playing again against me, and he ended up winning. But what's funny about this anecdote is not that history, that story about the chessboard. What's funny is that through that game, I managed to get to know the person that was in front of me. He was 19 years of age. Possibly he might be dead today. He had just had a daughter. She was 6 months old. And when the war started, he was 14. His childhood was stolen from him, and his God was the only thing that remained. A God as valid as ours. That's the only thing that he was left with. He left school. 2 of his brothers died in war. His parents had lost absolutely everything, and that kid started talking to me, and he said, "Why are you here?" And I tried to explain the reason why journalists go to conflict areas, to conflict zones, to give visibility to this, so that what happens in Iraq, as you've seen on the video, reaches this place. Because if we don't work, if we don't go there, if we don't show it, this doesn't exist. And he said, "That's quite nice, but I want to avenge my brothers." And no TV camera, no photo camera will achieve that. This kid, we called him Tom, because he looked like Tom Sawyer. He left without saying goodbye. I insist. He's probably dead now. He was 19. Possibly all the people that took part in our kidnapping are dead now. You were held hostage with these kids that you managed to talk to. What was your experience? The experience that you and your 2 journalist colleagues had. How did you pass time? What did you talk about? Well, we passed time locked in a room. And my 2 colleagues started doing fitness. They were doing crunches and push-ups. And one of them actually did 1,500 crunches every day. That's what happens when you have free time in your hands. What I did was to walk around the perimeter. I wasn't willing to leave that room looking like Cristiano Ronaldo. But what do? Well, you hold on to your colleagues when you hit low times. Then you talk to your colleagues. You talk about football, about traveling, about what you would like to do, because hope is the only thing that you lose. Because if you lose hope, you may as well shoot yourself in the head. So we talked about the travels that we wanted to go on together when we left that area. And we talked about cars, about women, about films. We talked about football. You have 24 hours a day with the same people, and you need to try to live with them, and they are your support. And in moments of stress and tension, being locked without any type of intimacy, that can also be a bit of a conflict. In the 3 months that we were together, we only argued once, just once. And my 2 colleagues were together another 204 days, and they didn't argue. And that's not normal. Normal people end up killing one another, or they end up arguing so that the people who hold them hostage give more food to some than others. So the first 95 days, I'm not going to say that they were nice, but they weren't hard. But the kidnapping changed the first week of October for me. The group that had kidnapped me was Al-Qaeda, as I said, and at the point in time they thought that I was working for the Spanish government, that I wasn't a journalist, that I was actually a spy. There was a person who pretended to be a negotiator on behalf of the government of Spain, and they sent them a letter addressed to me, and it was a letter to me. It was Spanish soldier. And he had his badge from the Ministry of Defense, the Spanish Ministry of Defense. And he asked me a question, and that meant problem for me. That meant trouble. He asked me about a friend, a common friend, what she did, what hospital she worked at, and what was her name. Our friend, her name is Elena. She lives in Valencia, a city in Spain. She works in the Hospital de la Fe, and she is a nurse. You need to take into account that all this was written in English, right? In English, it's nurse. And the group that had kidnapped me was Nurra. They thought that I had sent a message to the Spanish state to tell them what group had kidnapped us. And after that, they thought that you were a spy, right? And things changed. Yes, things changed. After that, it was a 204-day period in a punishment cell, all by myself, in an isolation cell, without seeing nothing but the people who were guarding my door. I lost 40 kilos. That was the best of the kidnapping. What did you have to eat? Boiled eggs. Rice, lots of rice, tomatoes, cucumber, oil and bread, when they fed me. Because, of course, a way to punish you is to not feed you. That's a way to punish you. I couldn't go to the toilet, and I could just go to the toilet twice a day when they wanted me to. So what you do is to become a dog. You know at what time exactly you can't go to the toilet, because they educate you to become almost a dog. You are educated to not bother them. They would come in the morning to feed me. At night, they would give me dinner, and they would just come in to hit me and torture me and harass me and laugh at me. Anything that you can imagine. Well, those people did it to me for 204 days. What was your room like? What was its size? What did you do in it? The perimeter was 52 steps. To get a flavor to it, I could sing a Christmas carol from one corner to another. And I can say I can sing a Christmas carol because the Christmas period I spent it there. I thought I was going to be home for Christmas, but I had to spend it there. But before we get to Christmas, I need to say, because we are amongst Christians, that in the first 95 days, I really took pride in not asking God for help. I'm going to explain why. As I said, I've been going to war zones for 10 years. I was a Christian, and I'm still a Christian, but at some point, because of the things you see at hospitals, you start wondering, where's God? Where the hell's God? I've seen children dismembered by bombs, many of them. How many dead people have I seen? I don't know, I stopped counting a long time ago. But just for you to get a flavor of it, in one morning, I saw 86 people killed, being shot in the head, executed. Amongst them, there were 2 children. And that happened for 10 years. And you ask yourself, where's God? And if you're here, why aren't you doing anything? And if you do nothing, I'm not going to pray for you. I'm not going to pray. So for those 204 days, I didn't pray, but things changed when I was separated. But not because I was separated, but because one morning my jailers, who had a fine sense of humor, decided to teach me a lesson. And I'm going to explain what the lesson was. I went out to the toilet, and when I come back to the room, there was one of them waiting for me, dressed in black, in one corner of the room. As you saw in the video, in the right hand, he had a video, and in front, there was a video camera. The guy walked into the room, he points at the floor, and he tells me to kneel down. At that point in time, another man comes in and he starts filming. The one holding the knife goes behind me and he lifts my chin and he puts his knife right here. And when I thought that it was going to be over, with the other end of the knife, he started hitting my head and laughing. And he said, "This is what's going to happen to you if you try to escape." After that day, the day after, actually, I started talking to God. I never prayed. I talked to God. And I started by saying, perhaps I'm the blackest of sheep. Perhaps you won't pay attention to me or you won't want to hear me because you have no people to hear. And from that day until the last day, every single day I talked to God. Every day. And he listened. And if I'm here, it's because he listened.
Les voy a contar una pequeña anécdota para que...
I'm going to share a small anecdote so that you understand what happened. The bad thing about a kidnapping is that you never know when it's going to end. This is not like a sentence. You know that you have a 10-year sentence, and after 10 years you go home. You never know when you're kidnapped when it's going to be the last day. And this was around April. I was desperate. I was writing letter to my other two colleagues. They never responded, of course. They actually told me that my colleagues had been killed. But one morning I was talking to God and I said, enough's enough. Enough's enough. What else do you want? I talk to you every day. I'm never asking you to do anything for me. I'm not asking you to release me. Take care of my people. But please give me a sign that someone is listening, because I can't believe this is the case. Give me a damn signal. I'm sick of being here. Give me a sign. And at that point, I hear the key to my cell. And every time the guards came into my cell, I had to wear a cover on my head to not see them. So I put the cover on my head. I hear steps. 2 minutes go by. They leave the room. And they lock back the room. I didn't know if there was someone inside or not, but I took off the cover and they had left tea and cookies. In 205 days, they never did it again, except for that one day. And I can assure you they didn't speak Spanish. That was possibly a divine response, right? Or the growling of my tummy, perhaps. What was worst, mistreatment or loneliness? Loneliness. Loneliness is the worst thing that a human being can suffer. If you're with another human being, you can touch, you can feel, you can see, you can deal with blows, with hits. You lower your head and say, okay, you cannot respond to it because otherwise you will get hit more. But if you're hit and you're alone, you need to deal with it yourself because you cannot talk to anybody. They loved to crush me so that I would start crying because they would love having me cry. And then they would come with swords and they'd say, shut up, or we will cut you, you will kid you, because men don't cry. And I cried. I don't care about saying I cried. I cried a lot. I'm no hero. I'm not brave. I was a 33-year-old guy who just wanted it to end, and as soon as possible. Antonio, did they respect you when you prayed? Well, no. No, they didn't respect me. Actually, one of the problems that I had was that they saw me pray because there were surveillance cameras in my room, and I asked them to please give me something to read. Just imagine 24 hours a day being idle, looking at the ceiling. And I asked them to give me Harry Potter, because Harry Potter is published in all languages, no? So what did they bring? They brought Quran, and I respect it. They brought me 3 chapters of Quran, and I read them. over and over again. I even memorized some passages. I didn't have anything else to do. If they had given me the instructions to put together a spaceship, I would have read them too. But they saw me and they asked me, how was it? And I said, it was very nice, give me more. And they thought I was converting. So they came in and talked to me about religion, etc., etc. And I said, okay, that's great. At least I have someone to talk to. Until at a point, one of them, he was tired of talking and he wanted to convert me. In Islam, if you convert a Christian to Islam, you get a straight entry to paradise. And he wanted to convert me. And he said, listen, we've been talking about religion for 3 weeks, talking about Quran. You're going to convert, right? And I said, no. No kidding. I've just reconciled with my God and you want me to convert? No. And I thought to myself, if I convert, I have to wake up at 4 in the morning to pray and do it 5 times a day. No. Are you kidding? And I said no. And that man, he pulled out a computer and he started showing me head cuttings of the Islamic State. And then American soldiers being killed by a sniper. And he said, if you're called, if you are killed, you will go to hell, because that's where people that don't believe in Islam go to. And my answer was, do you see where I am? This is hell. If I need to go down and you're not going to be there, then I want to go there, because I don't want to see you, neither those jerks that are out there, because I'm sick of all of you and I cannot stand any of you. I was punished for 21 days. I couldn't talk to anybody else for 21 days. They wouldn't even address me every time they came into my room. And what did they do? Well, when I prayed, they pumped up their religious music to not listen to me. When you're desperate and you've lost absolutely everything, you don't even care anymore if you're going to hit me anyhow. So what do? Well, I'm a bit of a trickster. At night, there was no light. They couldn't pump up their religious music because there was no power, so I started praying out loud so that they would hear me. When you believe, you need to hold on to your beliefs. No matter if you're a Muslim, a Christian, Jewish, don't change because someone is putting you under pressure. Believe or don't. But you cannot play around with the religious feelings of many other people. I knew that my situation was not going to change if I converted. So I decided to go ahead with it, because if I was going to get killed, I was going to get killed being a Muslim or a Christian. I imagine there were some tremendous moments, because you did recall that you had other colleagues who were being kidnapped, and Kim Foley and others. As Marta said, at that point, 2 colleagues had been kidnapped together with me, and we just exchanged 3 letters. 2 of them were answered, and that was around the 19th, 20th of October, and the other was between the 23rd and 24th of December. I sent another letter in February, and after February I didn't receive a reply. Every morning I asked for, I prayed for my parents, my friends, my wife, and I also prayed for Jim Foley's mother. Jim was the first North American journalist who was beheaded by the Islamic State. He used to be one of my best friends. I prayed for Jim's mom. And I also prayed for Austin Tice, another North American journalist who was kidnapped in August 2012. He's still under kidnap in Syria. Almost 6 years have gone by. Every day I prayed for them. You always think of them, of their families, and I mostly asked that Jim's and Austin's mom would have the same strength and the same hope as I did. And actually, I thought of them every morning, and the kidnapping felt so long. And you must take into account that I was kidnapped on the 13th of July, and I was released on the 4th of May. And as I said earlier, I spent Christmas on my own. I thought I was going to be released for Christmas. I thought that I was going to reunite with my parents for Christmas. The 31st of December came by. It was 2015, and I had no grapes in Spain to celebrate the year end. We eat grapes. What did they give me? They gave me a tangerine. So I took the pieces of the tangerine and I cut them into 12. Every night at midnight, they turned off the generator. And on the 31st of December 2015, when they turned off the generator, I started eating the pieces of tangerine one by one. And I celebrated Christmas on my own. So much time had gone by. It had been 6 months. When you see there's no way out, when you start thinking that you're going to be beheaded and that's going to be uploaded on the internet for your mom to see it, what do? Well, you start thinking, why don't I do it myself? You try to kill yourself. But while I was doing it, I don't know, maybe it was God, maybe it was my family that stopped me. How did you try to do it? Did you have a tool? Well, Muslims, they shave their armpits and their mustache. And one of them, they had left a blade in the toilet. And I took the head of the razor and I had it under my pillow for 3 weeks. And on the 4th of January, I decided to use it, and I will have those scars forever. You think, before they do it, let me do it myself. I don't want my mom to see this. My brother at the time, he was 18 years old. Does my brother deserve to see this? Does my brother deserve to have this reminded to him every day at school? It's not worth it. You decide not to do it, but in turn, you fall into a very deep depression, a terrible depression. From the 1st of January until the end of April, I didn't get out of bed except for going to the toilet. I spent all day crying in bed. Some days I was hit more often, some days I was hit a bit less. I stopped writing. They gave me paper for writing, and I wasn't even feeling like it. And we get to the 7th of March 2016, which is my birthday. You can imagine the party. 2 weeks before that, on the 24th of February, the head of Al-Qaeda, or the person that was responsible for the military unit that held me hostage, came into my room and said that he had checked that I was a good person, that I was a journalist, and that they were going to stop hitting me. I started crying and I hugged him. That was the first hug that I had given to another human being since the 8th of July 2015, my father's birthday, when he dropped me at the airport. That very same day, on the 24th of February, that guy gave me a chocolate cake as a token of good faith, of friendliness. And every day he came to me and he said, "You don't like chocolate?" And I said, "Yeah, I like it, but I'm saving it." I was saving it for the 7th of March. After dining, I split that cake into 5 pieces. My mom, my dad, my brother, my sister, and my wife. And while I was singing happy birthday to myself, I ate it piece by piece. I imagine the face of those people seeing me crying, singing, and eating that cake, and I guess they thought I had completely lost it. He's gone mad, they probably thought. Oh my God, Antonio, what an experience. Nonetheless, something changed. There was a point in time they came in, they gave you clean clothes, and things started to change. Before we get to that point, allow me, that day was actually the 7th of May 2016. On the 11th of April 2016, there was a point in which I was talking to God, and I was saying, "How could you stand this for so long? I need half the strength that you did to stand this, to go to martyrdom with dignity." So you get a lot of courage, you muster your courage, you knock on the door, and you tell one of them, "I cannot stand you, I cannot stand you, or those other crazy guys, those 4 guys who are there. This is it and that's all, kill me." And the guy looked at me in the eye and he said, and I was thinking, I don't know if he didn't understand my Arabic language or it wasn't crystal clear. And I said, "You, me?" The guy opened his eyes and he said, "Later at night, our boss will come and you talk to him." You know what they did at night? Can you imagine? They gave me a TV so that I would be calm. I'm not kidding. They gave me a TV so that I would remain calm. Because if you put an end to your life, their business was over. It was not that I was going to kill myself. They were afraid that I would perhaps try to escape and kill one of them in my try. So how do you tame wild animals? With music or with TV? And in those 3 hours of day when they had power, I could watch movies, and those were the most wonderful of my life. And I was wondering at that moment, you may wonder what had he done with his life until that point. Television is a magnificent invention. And going back to what Marta said, the 7th of May 2016, after the first prayer at 4 or 5 in the morning, 2 people entered my cell, and they were dressed in black with the hood and with the logotype of the Islamic State. They looked at me, I looked at them, and in spite of wearing their heads covered, I noticed their smile because I knew what was going to happen, and they gave me clothes. That meant that they were going to transfer me, perhaps sell me, or the third option, perhaps kill me. I changed clothes. They put a baklava on me, and they took me out on a van. I had been fearing that moment for 299 days, and being handcuffed and with a hidden face, the only thing that I asked God was for it to be quick and not hurt. Please let it not hurt. Let it be quick. The quicker, the better. I didn't want to end up like the pilot from Jordan, who ended up being burned alive. I didn't want to sink in the Euphrates. I wanted to just be beheaded, and that's it. So we got to a field. They stopped the van. They asked me to get out, and they took the baklava off of me. In front of me, my 2 colleagues, kneeling with very long hairs and a very long beard. And I thought, oh my God, you're looking strange. And I was selfish. I thought, okay, the 3 of us are going to be sold or the 3 of us are going to be killed. It's better to not die alone, right? What did they do? They released our handcuffs and they said, Turkey's right there. Don't ever come back. You look at them, you look at your colleagues, and you think, okay, they're going to shoot us from behind. I'm sure of that. They started pushing us so that we would walk. Okay. Let's see what happens. We started walking, and we heard the engines of cars leave, and they left us there in the middle of a field. And you think to yourself, I cannot believe this. You continue to work to the border, to the Turkish border, and you talk to your colleagues and say, okay, we're going to take off our top shirts to demonstrate that we are not carrying bombs, because you need to demonstrate that you're not a jihadist. You don't want these guys to survive, these guys to get killed by the Turkish guys. So you get to the Turkish border, the Turkish border guard doesn't speak Spanish or English, and you try to communicate to them what you're doing there. And we told them television, that's universal language, right? Television. And he said, okay. 10 minutes after, a sergeant from the National Army, the Turkish National Army, came. He spoke a bit of English, and we told him about our movie. They allowed us to cross the border to Turkey. There we went to the embassy, and we managed to get out of there alive. I imagine you may be wondering, how is it possible that this guy knows exactly how many days went by? Aren't you curious about how I know how many days went by? During those 299 days, I never lost track of time. One thing that is good about Muslims is that they mark the day by those 5 prayers. When we got to the 5th prayer, I was already counting the next day. Great idea to keep track of time. Well, when you're locked and you're deprived of one of your senses, then the other senses get more acute. In my case, I guess I became a bit more ingenious. After that, I haven't been the same as ingenious. When you're released and you get to Turkey and you can finally communicate with your family and go back to life in a way, What goes through your mind? What happens there? Well, Marta was asking earlier, what was the toughest thing in the kidnapping? And I said that the hardest thing in the kidnapping was being alone. We all are born and raised to be together. And I lied. It's a small sin. The most difficult thing about being kidnapped is having to come back to reality and realizing that for you the wheel of life has stopped, but for other people it continued to turn and turn and turn. And you need to face reality, a reality that is unknown to you because you've received no information whatsoever. And you need to call home. The next question is, will they all be there or not? The phone rang, the phone rings, and you say, who is not going to be there? And your mom pips up. And I thought I was never going to see her again because she has issues with her heart. And I thought that I wasn't going to see her. And she picks up the phone. And when you call abroad, there is a time lag where you hear them, they don't hear you, and it's like the Chinese whispers, right? And wow, listening to your mom. And people ask me, what did you tell her? I'm sorry. I could only say that. And what did my mom say? Don't be sorry. It's done. Bravo, Antonio.
Para que se hagan una idea de esta rueda.
And for you to get a flavor of this wheel, during the 6 months that I was kidnapped, I lost my uncle. He died to cancer, pancreatic cancer, in 3 months. And in the end, when he was dying in November, he said, I'm not going to be able to say bye to Toño. And he left with that sorrow. The kidnapping has had very many bad things, but also very many good things. And one of them is a life lesson. This is life, and it'll end tomorrow. Enjoy it. Thank God every day for being here. One last question, Antonio, because time flies by. Have you forgiven your kidnappers? Have I been able to forgive them? I don't hate them, but I don't forgive them. I don't hate them nor forgive them because I realized when I was with them that I couldn't be like them. When you talk to them, you realize that they hate not Christians, but Westerners. In general, for going to Afghanistan, to Iraq, to Libya, they say, you have killed our children, our parents, our wives. We're going to do the same to you because you earned it. And you come to realize that all that feeds their hatred. And you cannot be like them. You cannot live with hatred. It's not taking you anywhere. And one of the people that guided me the most in this was Nelson Mandela, the president of South Africa. He spent 25 years in jail. When he was appointed president, he could have killed all South Africans, all white South Africans. But what did he do? He fought for them, and he faced his people, because hatred doesn't take you anywhere. Christians and Muslims have been killing each other since the Crusades. Why? Because we hate each other. But there are so many things in common. Jesus Christ is a prophet for Muslims. Dialogue is what bonds people. Do I forgive them? I forgive them for what they did to me, but not for what they did to my parents or my brothers. That's something that you cannot forgive because they had no blame in this. I was in a war, it was my job, and sometimes journalists die in wars as people working in cooperation do, as civilians do, as soldiers do. I know it. I know that it's highly likely, and I know it knowingly. But the suffering cost to my parents, that's something that I will never forgive, never. Antonio, thank you so very much for being with us. I wanted to tell you that Antonio Pampliega has written a new book. It's called The Trenches of Hope. I don't know if you want to make a brief comment. Not really. Well, you can see it out there, and it's a very interesting book. Another interesting book that Antonio has treated us with. Thank you.